Welcome back to the fire. I'm Ace, and these are true stories sent in by people who thought that backyard camping was the safest way to enjoy the outdoors. No long drives to the mountains, no wild animals, just a tent, a fence, and a few thin walls of canvas between them and whatever was out there in the dark. Tonight, you'll hear 3 real experiences from people who camped just a few steps from their own back doors and still ended up wishing they'd stayed inside. So grab your blanket, stare into the flames, and listen close. Because after these stories, you might never look at your backyard the same way again. Our first story comes from Jenna, who thought that her backyard campout would be a quiet night alone with her and her little brother, until something started imitating their voices from the trees. Jenna was 19 when her parents left town for the weekend. It was supposed to be a simple arrangement. She'd watch her 12-year-old brother Milo. They'd order pizza, play games, maybe watch a movie. But Milo had other plans. He had just joined the Scouts and become obsessed with camping. When he found out the forecast was clear, he begged and begged Jenna to let him sleep in the tent in the backyard. "Come on, Jenna. It's basically still in the house. We can use the Wi-Fi from out there. Please?" She didn't love the idea, but their backyard was big and fenced, and they lived on the edge of a wooded green belt. No streets, just a stretch of trees behind their house. Jenna finally said, "Fine, but I'm staying out there with you, and if anything weird happens, we're going inside. Deal?" Milo agreed instantly. They set the tent up near the tree line, where the grass met the shadows of the woods. The inside looked cozy once they settled in. Sleeping bags, pillows, a lantern hanging from the ceiling loop. By 11, they were both in their bags, phones out, the glow lighting their faces. The sounds of the night were loud here. Crickets, the occasional hoot from an owl, leaves whispering against each other in the breeze. At some point, Milo fell asleep mid-video, phone still in hand. Jenna took it, set it aside, and turned off the lantern. She lay there in the dark, listening. That's when she thought she heard someone say her name, soft, almost like a whisper. "Jenna." She sat up slowly, heart giving a nervous little jump. The backyard was dim. Some light filtered through the thin fabric of the tent. She listened carefully. Nothing. She told herself it was just the wind, maybe a neighbor with the TV on, sound carrying strangely at night. She lay back down. A minute later, she heard it again. Only this time, it was cleaner, closer. "Jenna." It sounded like Milo's voice. She rolled onto her side to face him. He was curled up, breathing slowly, completely asleep. "Milo," she whispered. "Did you say something?" No response. Just steady, sleepy breathing. Her skin prickled. Maybe one of his friends was messing around, she thought. Maybe someone had snuck into the backyard. She unzipped the tent part way and peeked out. The backyard was still. The porch light was on, casting a triangle of dim gold light across the grass. The trees at the back stood like a tall, dark wall. No movement, no giggles, no one crouching in the shadows. She zipped the tent back up. A few minutes passed. "Jenna." Her stomach dropped. This time, the voice came from just beyond the tent, near the trees, and again, it sounded exactly like Milo. "You're not funny," she muttered, more to herself than anyone. Then she heard another voice. "Milo." It was her voice. Jenna's own voice, but wrong, like it was being played through a cheap speaker or repeated by someone who didn't quite know how to talk. It came from the same spot, out by the trees. "Milo, come here." Jenna froze, every instinct screaming at her to wake him up and go inside. But another part of her wanted to see what was out there, to prove to herself it was a prank or a neighbor's TV or anything normal. She slowly sat up and shook Milo's shoulder. "Hey, wake up." He blinked, disoriented. "What time is it?" "Late. Listen." They sat in silence, the night pressing against the thin tent walls. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, faintly, "Jenna." Milo's eyes widened. "That sounded like you," she finished. Then they both heard it. Her voice again, just outside the tent now. "Milo, come here. I want to show you something." The way it bent her words, too smooth on some syllables, too harsh on others, made her stomach twist. Milo whispered, "That's not funny. Stop." "It's not me," Jenna hissed. He looked at her, saw she was serious, and that's when he started to panic. The voice came again, a little louder, almost playful. "Milo, Jenna, come to the trees." Jenna grabbed her phone with shaking hands and turned on the flashlight. "On 3, we run to the house, okay?" she said. Milo nodded, already breathing fast. 1, 2. The voice cut in, louder, directly outside the tent now. "Don't run." Whatever was out there slammed a hand against the side of the tent. The fabric bowed inward, brushing against Jenna's shoulder. The impact sent the lantern hook rattling above them. Milo screamed. They bolted for the zipper, practically tearing it open, cold air rushing in as they tumbled out onto the grass. Jenna yanked Milo to his feet. The porch light suddenly flickered, once, twice, and went dead. The backyard plunged into darkness. Her phone's flashlight beam shook wildly as she pointed it towards the trees. For a second, she saw nothing but trunks and underbrush. Then, between 2 trees, something moved. Not a person, not exactly. It was a shape, a patch of darkness that seemed darker than everything else around it, like a hole cut into the night itself. As her light shook over it, it didn't show a face, or clothes, or anything. But when the beam passed over where the head should have been, she heard her own voice again. Soft this time, almost affectionate. "Jenna." She didn't wait to hear more. She dragged Milo with her, both of them sprinting for the back door, slipping on the grass. She fumbled with the handle, shoved it open, and they stumbled into the kitchen, slamming it behind them. The house felt suffocatingly quiet. Jenna locked the door and every other door in the house, hands shaking. They turned on every light they could find. For the rest of the night, they sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, TV playing some comedy they weren't even really watching. Around 2 a.m, Jenna's phone buzzed. She looked down. It was a notification from their home security app, the kind their parents use more for show than necessity. Backyard camera, motion detected. Her blood ran cold. She opened the app with shaking fingers and tapped on the most recent clip. The video began grainy, black and white. The camera was aimed toward the yard, showing the tent slightly sagging, grass moving gently in the breeze. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, from the tree line, something stepped forward. The motion sensor blurred it, like it couldn't quite decide what it was recording. The outline was vaguely human, but twisted, like all the proportions were just a little wrong. Arms too long, shoulders too narrow. As it moved closer, the audio picked up a sound. Jenna's voice. Not from the speaker, not from inside the house, but from outside, where the shape was. "Jenna, Milo, come to the trees." Milo whimpered beside her. The shape stopped halfway between the trees and the tent. Then, slowly, it turned to face the camera. The video glitched for a second, static distortion, and then when the image returned, the shape was gone. The clip ended. Jenna didn't sleep for the rest of the weekend. She didn't tell her parents everything when they got back, just that they heard noises and got scared and came inside. But she did show them the video. Her dad frowned, said it must have been the neighbors or a camera glitch, or a trick of the lighting. Her mom suggested turning the camera slightly or changing the motion sensitivity. They did both. What they didn't do was camp in the backyard again. Jenna still has the clip saved on her phone. Now and then, she rewatches it, slowing it down, pausing it frame by frame. She swears that in one single frame, just one, you can see a clearer shape. And whatever it is, it looks like it's smiling. If you're still listening, you're one of us. Hit that like button. It helps more people find these true stories. And if you want more, you know what to do. Back to the story. This next story is from Ethan, and it's about what he saw standing on the edge of his yard, long after everyone else had gone to sleep. Ethan was 16 the first time his parents actually encouraged him to camp out. They lived in a quiet suburb, street lights, trimmed lawns, nosy neighbors, the kind of place where nothing really happens. So when Ethan asked if he could pitch a tent in the backyard with his best friend Tyler, his mom didn't hesitate. "Back door stays unlocked," she said. "Phone stays on. If you hear anything weird, just come inside. No heroes." He laughed it off, but the last part stuck with him. No heroes. They set up the tent near the back fence, away from the porch light. It was one of those cheap dome tents you get at a big box store, with thin fabric and a zipper that never really quite closed. By 10 p.m., they were zipped inside, sleeping bags arranged, flashlight in the middle, a pile of snacks between them. They scrolled through horror stories on their phone, taking turns reading them in overly dramatic voices, trying to scare each other. Ironically, none of those stories were as scary as what actually happened. Around midnight, the neighborhood went quiet. The distant traffic faded. Even the dog 2 houses over finally stopped barking. That's when Ethan first heard it, a soft, deliberate crunch in the grass. He glanced at Tyler. Tyler was still on his back, earbuds in, watching a video. Ethan muted his phone and listened. Another crunch. Closer this time. Not the random rustling of a breeze. This sounded like footsteps. He turned off his phone completely, letting the tent sink into a full darkness except for the dim glow bleeding through the thin fabric from the neighbor's porch light. "Dude," Ethan whispered, "hold up." Tyler pulled out his earbuds. "What?" "Someone's out there." They both held their breath. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, as if whoever or whatever was out there had been waiting for absolute silence. Crunch. Crunch. Footsteps, slow, heavy, moving along the side of the tent. The sound stopped right by Ethan's head. He could hear the faint rasp of breathing through the fabric. Every instinct told him to say something, but his mouth went dry. Tyler finally whispered, barely audible, "Is that your dad?" Ethan swallowed. "My dad's on the night shift. He's not home." The breathing outside the tent shifted. Whoever was there took one more slow step, and Ethan saw the shape of a shoe press lightly into the side of the tent near his face. And that was when Tyler did the bravest and dumbest thing he could have done. He whispered louder this time. "Who's out there?" Everything went still. The breathing stopped. The pressure against the tent vanished. For 3 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Then, from the other side of the thin fabric, right above their heads, someone chuckled. It wasn't a laugh, not a full, genuine one. Just a low, ugly sound, like someone who had just heard a private joke. Ethan's heart hammered so hard he could feel it in his throat. Tyler whispered, "Nope, I'm out." He lunged for the zipper, fumbling in the dark, the metal teeth snagging once, twice, before finally giving away. Cold air rushed in as they spilled out of the tent and sprinted for the back door. Behind them, in the blackness of the yard, they heard a voice speak clearly for the first time. "Didn't mean to scare you, boys." The way he said it, it sounded exactly the opposite. They burst through the back door, slamming it shut. Ethan's mom was already halfway down the hallway, robe on, eyes wide. "What happened?" With shaky breaths, they told her someone was in the backyard. She flipped on the floodlights and looked through the sliding glass door. The backyard glowed a white, harsh light. The tent stood there, half collapsed, one side drooping where Ethan had shoved through. The grass near the tent was clearly flattened in a curved path, footprints stamped in the dew. Near the fence, just beyond the reach of the floodlight, something moved. A man stepped into view, one hand raised to shield his eyes from the glare. He was tall, wearing faded jeans and a jacket that looked too big for him. His hair was messy, his face half-shadowed. "Evening," he called out. Ethan's mom slid the door open just a crack. "Who are you? What are you doing in my yard?" The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Just passing through and saw the tent. Thought maybe the boys were out here all alone. Wanted to make sure they were safe." Ethan's mom's voice hardened. "You need to leave. I'm calling the police." The man lifted both hands like he was surrendering. "Hey, I get it. No harm meant." He backed up slowly, step by step, until he reached the fence. And that's when Ethan realized something that made his stomach drop. The gate was on the other side of the yard. This man hadn't used the gate. He had climbed over the fence to get in, and now he swung his one leg over it again, like he'd done it 100 times before. Before he dropped down on the other side, he looked directly at Ethan through the glass door and said, "You boys should zip your tent up all the way next time. Lots of weirdos out at night." Then he was gone. The police came. They walked the yard, checked the alley, shined their flashlights along the fence line. They found scuffed wood where the man had climbed over, and cigarette butts tucked into the corner by the fence, like someone had been standing there many nights before, smoking and watching. But that was it. No name, no car, no reason he should have known that there were 2 teenage boys sleeping outside at night. Ethan says he's never camped in his backyard again. They kept the tent, but after that, it only ever went up in organized campgrounds, with other people and bright lanterns all around. Even now, years later, when he visits his parents and looks at the backyard, he can't help imagining a figure standing just beyond the fence, listening to him breathe through the thin fabric. Not every threat in the dark is supernatural. Sometimes it's just a stranger who shouldn't be there, and that's scary enough. Our last story tonight comes from Mark, who learned that sometimes the danger isn't at the edge of the yard, but right above your head. Mark and his wife Leela moved into their first house together in late summer. It was a small place with peeling paint and uneven floors, but it had a big selling point, a wide private backyard. The first thing Mark did after they moved in was buy a fire pit. He'd grown up camping and wanted to bring a little bit of that feeling home. It became their tradition. Every Friday night, they'd sit by the fire, roast marshmallows, and talk about their week. One particular Friday, Leela suggested something different. "We should sleep outside," she said, "like a mini vacation. Just one night in the tent." Mark loved the idea. They set up not far from the house, where the grass was softest. The tent faced away from the back door, towards the fence and the shadows. From where they lay, they could just see the upstairs bedroom if they craned their necks. They roasted marshmallows until late, then finally doused the fire and crawled back into their tent, the smell of smoke clinging to their clothes. Inside it was warm and quiet. Leela fell asleep quickly, her breathing slow and steady. Mark thought and laid awake. New house noises still made him uneasy. The distant pop of cooling wood, the faint hum of the old refrigerator through the wall, the way the wind made the eaves creak. He checked his phone. Almost 1 a.m. He was just starting to drift off when he heard something. A faint creak, like a window opening. He opened his eyes. Through the thin tent mesh, he could see the outline of their house against the sky. The upstairs bedroom window, one they'd closed earlier, now looked different. It was darker. The reflection of the streetlight was gone. He squinted. The window was open. He sat up slowly, carefully not to wake Leela. He told himself he must have forgotten to lock it. Maybe the old latch had slipped. Old houses did weird things. He lay back down, closing his eyes. A few minutes later, he heard another sound. Soft, deliberate footsteps from inside the house. They moved from the bedroom above, across the floorboards, to the top of the stairs. Mark held his breath. Another step, and another. The sound descending carefully, as if whoever was walking was trying not to be heard, but the old wood betrayed him with each creak. He glanced at the back door. It was out of sight of the tent around the corner of the house. He couldn't see if it was open or closed. "Leela," he whispered. "Hey." She stirred. What? Do you hear that?" They both listened. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs, then stopped. The house went quiet again. Mark swallowed. "I think someone's inside." That woke her fully. "What do you mean, someone?" she whispered. He considered calling the police, but what would he say? "Hi, I'm camping in the backyard and heard noises in my own house." He decided to take a look first. Just peek. If anything seemed off, he'd call. He unzipped the tent halfway and crawled out, the night air cool against his skin. He stood up slowly, eyes fixed on the back door. It was closed. The kitchen light was off. Everything looked normal. He took one step towards the house. Then he froze. Something moved in the upstairs window. He looked up. The bedroom light was off, but there was just enough illumination from the street lamp to outline a figure standing there. A person, in his bedroom, silhouetted against the faint glow. They were very still, just standing at the glass, looking out over the yard, looking down at him. Mark couldn't see a face, just a shape of head, shoulders, and arms. The figure was slightly turned, as if he had just noticed him. He took a step back. Behind him, he heard Leela unzip the tent. "What is it?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He just pointed up. She followed his gaze and immediately grabbed his arm, nails digging into his skin. "Who is that?" she hissed. The figure didn't move. Mark dug his phone out of his pocket. With shaky hands dialed 911. As he explained in a low voice what he was seeing, the figure finally shifted. Slowly, it raised one hand and waved. Not a frantic wave, not a friendly one. Just a slow, deliberate motion, side to side. Mark's breath caught in his throat. The dispatcher told him to stay outside, stay online. Officers were on the way. Minutes passed like hours. They watched the window the whole time. The figure stayed there, just standing, just watching. Sirens finally approached, growing louder until red and blue lights splashed across the street out front. The silhouette disappeared from the window. 2 officers came around the side gate, guns holstered but hands close. Mark pointed up, voice shaky. "There's someone up in the bedroom. They were just standing there, watching us." The officers exchanged a look. One stayed with them in the yard while the other one used Mark's key to go inside. They listened as the cop moved through the house. "Clear," he called from room to room. Footsteps upstairs, more doors opening and closing. After a few minutes, he appeared at the back door and stepped out. "Nobody's inside," he said. "Every door is locked, windows too." Mark frowned. "That's impossible. The bedroom was open. We saw it. We saw them." The officer shook his head. "It's shut now, and latched, I checked." They insisted he check again. He did. This time, he had Mark come with him. The bedroom looked exactly as they'd left it. Half unpacked boxes, clothes on a chair, the bed slightly messy. The window was closed. Mark walked over and touched it. The lock was old, but firmly in place. There was no scratches on the frame, no signs of forced entry. The dust on the sill looked undisturbed, except for one faint line, about the width of a finger, dragged slowly along the sill, as if somebody had traced it from one side to the other. The officer shrugged it off. Maybe a reflection, or you saw your own shadow. New place, new sound, being outside at night, you can play tricks. They left after a while, assuring Mark and Lita to call again if they saw anything. That night, they didn't go back into the tent. They slept in the bedroom, door locked, phone on the nightstand. Mark lay awake for hours, watching the window, waiting for the faint outline of a stranger to appear again. He never did. But the next morning, when he went outside to put the tent away, he noticed something he wished he hadn't. On the grass, directly below the bedroom window, the dew was disturbed. 2 long partial marks in the wet blades of grass, about shoulder width apart, like somebody had dropped down from the window and steadied themselves with their hands. The ground was soft enough to take impressions, but there was no footprints leading to or away from the spot. Just the 2 handprints and the memory of a faceless figure watching from above. Mark says they still use the backyard, they still light the fire pit, but they never sleep out there anymore. And every night, before they lock up, he checks that bedroom window twice. Not because he's afraid it'll open, but because he's afraid the window will be closed, and someone will be standing there on the other side of the glass. Backyard camping feels safe. You're close to home, there are fences, lights, neighbors just a shout away. But the people in these stories learn something most of us don't want to admit. You don't have to be deep in the woods for the night to watch you back. Sometimes the scariest things happen just a few steps from your own back door. If you have true stories about camping, whether it's in your backyard, deep in the forest, or somewhere in between, and you'd like to share it, you can send it in to be featured in a future episode. Thank you for sitting by the fire with me tonight. If you enjoyed these stories and want to hear more true stories told like this, don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next time we light the fire. Until then, sleep well and maybe keep the curtains closed. Thank you and good night.